This is Masters Cast, the first He-Man and She-Ra podcast, episode number 79 for Sunday, February 19th, 2023. Hey everyone, thanks for downloading. I'm John Callis, also known as The Shadow.
I'm Katie Carty Hiley, also known as Rainbow Bright.
I am Martin Penny, also known as Wacky Martin. It's difficult when you're concentrating on people's faces, you forget who you are. I've never seen you do the Masters Cast intro and watched you do it. And I was like, oh, that's how he looks when he's doing the intro.
I know, right?
It really distracted me.
I am Leanne Hanna, also known as Stratosmecha.
I'm Josh the Lion Court, also known as the Lion Court.
So we are doing an experiment. We are recording the podcast for the first time in video. Even though we have recorded the podcast several times on Zoom, we never turn on our cameras. So we have turned on our cameras and we're going to post this up on our YouTube channel, which we have for kind of fun. So if you want to check out the video version of this, as long as it recorded properly and all goes well, it will be posted probably on Monday. And our channel is youtube.com/@masterscast. So we'd appreciate it if you go check out the channel and give it a subscribe there. But we will continue doing the audio podcast, so it'll get delivered to you just as it normally does through your favorite podcast app if you've subscribed via Spotify or Apple Podcasts, that sort of thing. And for anyone new that might be checking us out on YouTube, we started the podcast way back in 2005, and we were super consistent for many, many years. And then it just became, a labor of love, and we record the podcast here and there. It's still alive. Who knows how many episodes we'll have this year? It's always a mystery, but we'll try to be a little bit more consistent. But we'd like to wait until there is something to talk about. And this particular time, our main topic is going to be the new Masters of the Universe comic book series that is out right now from Dark Horse Comics. It just literally came out last week, and it is called Masters of the Universe Masterverse. And it is written by a kind of a popular writer for a lot of the He-Man comic book stuff these days, Tim Seeley. So I thought first we would do non-spoiler thoughts, so your overall thoughts, spoiler free, and then we'll alert everyone when we actually go into the spoilers of the story and that sort of thing. So if you need to pause and wait until you read the actual comic, I would suggest going to your local comic book shop to find the comic in person if you can. Support your local comic book shops. Or you could be lazy like I am, and I buy all my comics digitally on Comixology on Amazon.
You monster.
But I know.
That's what I did too. So
it's so easy for them to be delivered to my iPad, and just the it's interesting. I say it's lovely quality, but you also kind of see, I feel like we were really spoiled when the MV Creations comic book series was out with Emiliano probably taking way more time on each panel than he should. I feel like a lot of comic books I read today on Comixology, they do this kind of panel by panel view where you can go instead of just looking at the full page. And when it zooms in on some of the art, I don't know if it looks to me like it's like a pencil that's been darkened, and then
a lot of times it is, yeah.
Yeah, it's like an odd quality. I feel like it was not necessarily rushed, but it wasn't something that was spent a long time on. If I would compare it to Leanne's recent work on Power Rangers, there's a vast difference between your Power Ranger images, than what I would see in a Power Ranger comic book. But I guess that, they have to put those out quicker. So.
Yeah.
So it's
also the style is totally different. The coloring style and all that it took forever, but hopefully it looks good. So
might just be the budget, right? Dark Knight versus 60s Batman. I mean, something.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the
60s Batman.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times, it is dark and pencil, and that can be a budget thing. You don't want to pay an inker. So I mean, a lot of artists nowadays, pencilers will actually ink their own stuff. I ink my own stuff, but sometimes if you want to save money, you just darken have really tight pencils and just darken it. And I think a lot of people
Are
probably
you just
do
doing
that.
that all in like Photoshop or Illustrator?
Mhm.
And are you
Or,
and you're coloring
yeah.
everything digitally, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it's all digital. It's just easier, you know,
Mm-hmm.
than having to scan pages. And I actually just got rid of my scanner. I had like a big
What?
11 by 17 scanner, and I just got rid of it because I don't use it enough, you know? So
Yeah.
Makes sense.
yeah.
Well, since
But, yeah.
Leanne's worked in comic books and is an artist, why don't you start off? What's your general opinion of the start of Masterverse issue number 1?
So I wasn't sure how I was going to like this, you know, this type of story. I didn't know really what to expect, but I actually really liked it because it's kind of like, it's like you're opening up the multiverse of Masters. So you can take from any type of lore you want, and create stories. It's like an Elseworlds, you know, DC's Elseworlds comics, which I loved back in the day. But I like that you can kind of pick and choose and revisit, you know, what if people like the CGI show, you can visit that world, or the mini comics, or, you know, things like that. So it opens up a lot of possibilities, which I think is really cool. And I thought the story, I like the kind of the bookended story with the Sorceress and Zodac. That's kind of, you know, that'll frame everything. So I think that was good from a storytelling standpoint. Really loved the first story, which I don't know how much we want to like spoil it. And also the guided view that you were talking about, John, in Comixology, that's what I did. I used the guided view as I was reading, and I thought that lent itself really well to what happens in that first story, because I wasn't expecting where it was going. And so if I was reading an actual comic, I might see it on the page, right? The next page or whatever. So I thought that was really cool.
That's what I love about that type of view on Comixology's app, because you don't get spoiled like you do on a regular comic book. Because like you said, when you turn that page, you immediately, I know exactly what you're talking about. You would have seen what was going to happen before you kind of read what was going to happen. And I definitely preferred being surprised, because when he says something slightly different is what I assume you're talking about. It just wouldn't have been as much of an impact if I had seen the whole page.
Right.
For sure.
So so I really enjoyed that. So yeah, I don't know if we want to talk specifics yet, but or just an overall
just tell
view.
me, like, overall, like, would you give like thumbs up on the first story, thumbs down in the middle on the second story?
Definitely give a thumbs up to like the bookend story and the first story, and then like a thumb like that, sideways thumb for the second story, only because I know that they were the type of audience they were targeting it towards was like a Mad Magazine type, because the artist Sergio is super legendary for, you know, Mad Magazine and his Gru work. So that's what they were going for. That's the type of audience they were going for, which isn't necessarily my cup of tea, but it's still kind of cool to see that sort of thing. And there were elements that I really did enjoy about that story. So that's my impressions. But I do like how it kind of opens the world up. You know, all these different incarnations we've had of He-Man, you know, we can revisit them. We can do, you know, see new little eras maybe. It's very cool.
Martin?
I enjoyed it. If I may digress from this comic for a moment, just to reference, did anyone read the previous sort of multiverse type He-Man, Masters of the Multiverse, I think it was called? That was like the DC one that came out about 2 years ago or so.
Half and half. I think I started it, and I actually still have to finish it.
I really enjoyed that. I think that's the best He-Man comic that DC put out. And they had like a new adventures issue. They had 2002 issue. They had a Filmation one. And I thought that was a great concept, and it's very similar to what they've done here. And that one was like the different versions of He-Man traveling through the universe. And you had like the mobile game He-Man was like a sidekick to Dolph Lundgren He-Man. That was really interesting. So I saw this one and I was like, oh, maybe it's like a follow-up to that almost. And I don't think it is, but it's in a similar vein. And I do really like that concept because there's so many different versions of He-Man. And I went into this thinking, is it just going to be like the same thing? Are they just going to give us like the mini comic He-Man one issue and then the new adventures the next issue or something? But it seems as though they've chosen very different incarnations for this. They're not just repeating the same stuff they did in that. So I thought that was cool. Yeah, I was disappointed that the first issue ended because I was like, oh, this one's good. This is an interesting twist. And then the second one started and I was like, oh, okay. And I thought like that was going to be like the comedy strip at the back of a comic. Do you know, like when you get your way through like the serious bit, like they used to do like random little panels in the back of the Star Wars comics. And there was a comedy one with like Palpatine and like a baby Darth Maul. And I thought this was going to be like a fun little back of the comic strip. And I was like, oh, it's an entire story. This is the second one. And I wasn't expecting that to be like a whole story. But I did enjoy it. And before we recorded, Katie sent a quote from Skeletor within the comic, in which he told someone to go suck a fart, Eternia. And I was like, oh dear.
Yeah, that worried me.
In context, I thought actually this one was pretty funny, and I did end up enjoying it. It went in a very unexpected direction. I liked them both, yeah, but I thought the first one was the stronger one. And I look forward to whatever else they've got planned.
Katie?
Yeah, so my first read through, that line just took me out of it completely. I was just like, wait, what? Why is there like 6-year-old humor in this He-Man comic that adults are reading? I don't understand why they threw that in there. But as I kept reading, I kept laughing and tears were like running down my face by the end of it. So I'm like, okay, clearly that line just stuck in my head a little too much, but in the end it was fine. And then when I did my second reread, it didn't bother me at all, and I enjoyed the whole thing. I don't remember which comic it was, but remember years ago there was an issue of one comic where I think Orko did something crazy, and every page or every couple pages was a different art style. And I remember one of the art styles being like this chibi, like adorable, cutesy thing, and just freaking out because I loved it so much. So this kind of reminded me, not that this was cutesy art style at all, but it just reminded me of the fun that I had with that comic, excuse me, all those years ago, because I'm not a big comic reader in general. Most of the He-Man comics especially have been just way too dark for me. That's just not my thing. But I enjoyed that, especially this first issue. They gave us both. Like I can take some dark if they also balance it with some humor and some light, which they did a great job of doing. So I kind of hope they keep that up. If they want to throw in some adorable chibi cutesy stuff in the future, I would be down for that, obviously, but I'll enjoy it, I think, no matter what, because it's kind of a breath of fresh air. And with all the different iterations of He-Man, like I think Leanne mentioned, there's just so many possibilities. They have such a large just like well of stuff to draw from. So I think they can have a lot of fun with this, and probably have had a lot of fun with it. And I really hope it does well, because I think isn't it just like 4 issues that are coming currently? I think
so.
I hope it, if it continues like this first issue, I hope that people really dig it so they can do more, because I think this would actually be a series I would read and enjoy.
Josh?
So let's see where to begin. I mostly enjoyed this comic. I don't have a lot to compare it to. I know Martin was asking who read the Multiverse one from DC. Unless basically, unless John reads them to me, I don't get to read most of the comics. And we do make some time to do that for certain ones like this one. And I can't obviously comment on the art style or anything like that. So I'm focused really on the story and the concept. And in that regard, I love this concept. And the story was strong. So like Leanne, I love the setup with the bookended sections with the Sorceress and Zodac. Absolutely fantastic way to do this type of story. The first story of the two that are in here, where they're looking at the different worlds and variations of masters, was very, very good. Really enjoyed it. The second one I enjoyed like the first 4/5 of, and it was really the end that killed it entirely for me. I hated the ending, and I can get more into that when we do the spoilers, but really disliked the ending. The rest of that second one, story-wise, I think was fine. I totally get what they were going with, I think, for this issue as a whole, because the first story is kind of the dark, a little bit more serious Masters type story, and the second one is the more goofy story. It just took the goofiness too far at the end, and I would say it was really even just at the end. Like the rest of it felt like it could have been, a comic or a cartoon, produced in the 80s or whatever. They draw a lot from earlier material that we can talk about more in the spoilery section, and things like that, which was all great. They just jumped the shark at the very tail end. So, but overall, really like this. I'm really excited to see what the rest of the issues. I think the only thing that I really kind of wonder, it's interesting the choice that they made, and really wonder why, or if any thought was put into it at all, is it kind of felt like one of the two main stories we got here should have been from a more recognizable uh incarnation of Masters of the Universe than both of these were basically amalgamations, right, of things that have come before, but nothing super recognizable in and of itself. Like for example, the first one draws from like the classics toy line. The second one draws from, and I guess classics toy line, a little bit of more like the maybe the Mike Young show or something like that. The second one definitely drew from like the very, very early mini comics and the early DC full-size comics from 1983. I think the full-size ones, the miniseries they had back then, definitely drew from both of those, but neither one recognizable as a specific incarnation. And I feel like for an issue one, they might have been better served as of making one of the two stories something that pulled on the nostalgia a little bit more in terms of being recognizable to a fan coming in, and then let the other one be a little bit out of left field. I think that would have made more sense overall, but and I definitely would have preferred that over the very bizarre ending that they gave the second story. So, but overall, this is one of the best Masters comics that I can remember reading, and story wise, and I'm really excited to see what the future issues hold.
Basically the same as all of you then for me. I love the concept of it. I like how there's, I'm assuming, going to be two condensed mini stories within each episode or each issue, and I like the concept of how they're displaying it via Zodac's reasoning with the sorceress. It's obvious they're going off of the Revelations kind of plot areas. I feel like this is like a prequel in a way, because the first episode of Revelation, He-Man, Skeletor, everyone's established. Whereas at the beginning of this, Zodac is, I don't think this is a big of a spoiler, he's coming in because He-Man does not seem to be as established yet. So I feel like this is kind of something that must have happened even before the Filmation series, if Revelation is a spiritual, or whatever Kevin Smith said, sequel of Filmation. But I like the concept. I like the way they use Zodac here. He still had some edge, but he seemed to have more purpose here than he did in the Mike Young cartoon, which is really the only other form of media I feel that he really was used a lot. I remember thinking back in the Mike Young days that sometimes the episode should have maybe have been called Zodac and the Masters of the Universe instead of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. So I like how he's being used here. The first story I really enjoyed. The artwork for me looked like an updated Filmation, more of like, because they seem to have like Evelyn looked like she had her Filmation-y kind of outfit on. But it wasn't drawn necessarily in the style of Filmation, but kind of an homage to the Filmation looks. The second story, however, I don't even know if I cared for the bulk of it. The art was very distracting for me. And I have a problem with comic books when I don't like the artwork. And a good example, if anybody has attempted to read DC's current Robin comic book for Tim Drake,
yeah,
I don't want to knock an artist, but that comic book is so far removed from a style that I personally enjoy that the artwork is legitimately too distracting for me to even care to read the story. And I gave it a few, I gave it a few issues and I unsubscribed from the series. I didn't necessarily mind the story, but the artwork was just too distracting. So that's kind of how I felt on the second one. The artwork was more distracting than the humorous story. I guess I didn't mind humorizing the homage to the old mini comics. I also, like Josh, however, really thought I didn't like the ending. I feel like if there was a better punchline at the end, given it was a humorous take, I would have had a more favorable opinion on it. Just been like, oh, okay, they're doing kind of like a comedy skit on this. But I didn't really understand the end. If anything, they should have referenced a Mattel product that Mattel had. I don't remember when it came out, but late 80s, they had a competitor product of kind of the generic thing that's at the end. So I thought
early 80s, but yes. Yeah. I had the same
if
thought.
they would have used that, it would have made a bit more sense to me. So yeah, it's more so the ending mixed with the artwork. And again, no offense if that, if you love that style, it's just too distracting for me. So I'll be interested to see how many times do they switch, the art style. And who was the artist on the first one? Kelley Jones.
Kelley
right?
Jones, yeah. Yep.
Am I correct? Was Kelley Jones the one that did like Nightfall and
Yes, he did.
Night
He did all the
Quest?
covers for the Nightfall.
And here's how someone can improve. So I was huge into comics, right, in the 90s, like probably a lot of us were, when they kind of had their big, resurgence. And like I had every issue of Nightfall, Night Quest, Night whatever. But I hated that Kelley Jones artwork so much. I was so pleasantly surprised. I really dug the artwork in that first story that Kelley Jones did. So it just goes to show that it's not that the artist isn't talented. I'm definitely not trying to say that. It's just the style they choose to use is just not favorable to me. But you know, I'm sure I could look maybe at something else Sergio has done and be like, oh, I love this. It's just that particular style he's using. I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Did it kind of feel like these two stories could have been mini comics that were packaged in the Masterverse toys? Because it kind of does to me. Like maybe there at some point down the line there was a concept to put mini comics in the Masterverse toys like they did with Origins, and they opted not to do that, and now we're getting those whatever it was they were working on packaged this way.
That's an interesting concept.
Since there's
Given
two
the
Yeah,
toy
short
line also
possible.
has, and they have that new Eternia line where they are redesigning even the characters. So yeah, that is kind of interesting that they did not choose to do any type of mini comic for the Masterverse line. You could be on to something. Well, I guess we can go into spoiler territory now. So if you have not read the comic, that's your fair warning. We are going to talk about the actual stories, both of them in Masterverse #1, which is the first one is Curse of Castle Grayskull, and the second one was called He-Man the Lost. So I guess we should talk about Curse of Castle Grayskull first. But the setup is Zodac comes to Castle Grayskull to meet with the sorceress because he's not sure if Adam should have the power of Grayskull and be He-Man. So the sorceress opens up all of these cool little like portal doors inside Grayskull to show Zodac different multiverses of Adam becoming He-Man, to show that, you know, he's worthy of the power in all of these other multiverse universes. So in this current, which I will call the Revelation universe, he is worthy to have the power of Castle Grayskull. And for me personally, the thing I loved the most in the first story was what Leanne and I were talking about earlier in reading it on Comixology, so that you kind of go scene by scene instead of page by page, because Adam says by the horror of Grayskull, and you're like, what? Like that was a complete unexpected turn for me. And then he turns into Castle Grayskull Man, which I think is way more creative than like, if I had to guess, I probably would have guessed he would have turned into like a zombie He-Man, or maybe anti-Eternia He-Man, like one of those type of more like gruesome looking things. But instead he is Castle Grayskull Man. So I thought that was a very unique way to kind of bring that character in.
You know, when I was first reading that panel where he says by the horror of Grayskull, I think my brain just saw the H and just filled in honor. So I didn't even notice that's what he said until he said, let the horror return. I'm like, did he just say horror? So I had to like back up and see that that's what he originally said. And I was just like, okay, got it now. And I had to like message Daniel Benedict. I'm like, have you seen this? Did you know that Castle Grayskull Man is in this comic? He's like, at first he's like, oh, well, yeah, I saw he was on the cover. Like, I hope he gets I hope he's in a panel or two. And I'm like, dude, he's in several panels. He's very important in this story. He was like, wait, what? So, and I was like, do you know Tim Seeley? Because I feel like he's channeling you here, because he's such a horror film nut, or just horror nut in general, and came up with the idea of Castle Grayskull Man. And he was like, well, yeah, I met him, you know, at the screening for one of his movies. So they're not like close buddies or anything, but I think, yeah, he was going to reach out and say, dude, that was cool. But I was just very like, whoa, this is really awesome and out there, and not what I would have expected at all. And then like, I didn't quite understand the twist at the end of that one where the castle was feeding on a soul.
Oh, the
or
souls,
something
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like every time he changes into Castle Grayskull Man, like it seems to negatively feed Castle Grayskull, like as if that's a bad
Yeah.
thing. That's what
Yeah,
I
like-
took from it.
Yeah, it's like, because I wondered, I was like, why isn't he transforming? Like, there's a reason why he doesn't want to transform. And I was like, you know, is this just Adam trying to prove himself that he can do this without the power or something? So I thought that was a really good twist, that, you know, he's like, oh, all right, I have to do it. and he turns into Castle Grayskull Man, which I thought was great. Also, the artwork for the panel where he's holding up the sword was really well done. It was really great. I mean, Kelley Jones's art style works so well for this story because he has such a like horror gothic type style to his art with lots of shadows and things like that. It gave me like Hammer horror vibes. It's like that crossed with He-Man. It was just, really, really nice. But yeah, I thought that was a great twist to the whole thing. And then you got to see like Web Store and Scareglow, Batros was in it.
Yeah.
Like, just really cool to see these characters pop up, these kind of horror based, themed He-Man characters. It's really, really cool.
And with all the darkness going on, you've got Orko singing the Horn of Evil song. I was losing it.
That was the best surprise, I think, in that they actually, because a lot of times the Mattel products tend to shy away from the Filmation stuff, most likely because of rights issues. So the fact that they were able to include because we love that episode. That's one of my favorite episodes, and I used to rent it all the time from the local video rental shop. Before streaming, my parents would rent me that videotape frequently with that episode on it. So it's always one of my favorites from childhood. So I've always had that song memorized. And we got the proper lyrics because all of the proper lyrics are.
I noticed that too. I was like, oh, that's what it said all these years. Okay.
Yeah, right. Like, I feel like there was a part where I was like, I maybe never really understood what they said, and I kind of just made it up. And then when I read it in the comic, I was like, oh, that makes sense.
100%.
Yeah.
And that song stuck in my head the rest of the day. It was great.
As it should be.
Yes.
Yeah, really, really loved this story. I always lean toward the darker side of Masters, the more serious side of Masters, and this definitely had elements of that. I love the Batros being super leaning into the vampire thing with him. And it was this story was really, really well done. I also, you guys were talking about the Castle Grayskull Man. That was a figure from the classics line originally that loved the idea, thought the figure looked cool, and never really was satisfied with any sort of rationale of why this character exists. And this, to me, this is now going to be, my personal headcanon, as they say on The Incomparable, for Castle Grayskull Man, because him being this kind of alternate He-Man, for lack of any other way, alternate hero for Adam to transform into in this particular universe, is awesome and a lot of fun, and I love that they went that way with it.
Well, it's nice that it's also like a bold creative decision, right? Like, I feel like the easier way to use Castle Grayskull Man is kind of like correct me if I'm wrong, one of the last Harry Potter movies, when doesn't McGonagall, like, she makes the castle has to help, Hogwarts has to help defend itself, right? So to me, that's what Castle Grayskull Man is like, right? Like, he comes out of the castle wall and he's defending the castle. And that's cool for like a regular canon, right? But what I like about this concept of the Masterverse is that they're actually taking risks with the story. So it's like, obviously you're not going to have a new cartoon series where Prince Adam changes into Castle Grayskull Man on a regular basis, right? But with these type of stories, you can take that risk. You can take that challenge, if you will. How can I take something existing and just have fun with it? So that's what I really appreciated about the first story as well. Like, taking something that's kind of a newer character too. Like you said, that was the new Create a Character contest that Daniel Benedict won. And I never even thought of the connection that, Daniel Benedict directs and creates horror films. So I really feel that that's too much of a coincidence. I think that's awesome. Than the way that Tim Seeley wrote that, because even if it was like, he wasn't conscious of what he's doing, it was probably in the back of his head. So that's really cool for Daniel Benedict, because he's a great guy. So I think that's pretty good.
Also, shout out to, was it Procrustes that showed up
Yes.
the at the very beginning, the statue? That was great.
Who was like
Nice Easter
where was he
eggs.
established
Yeah.
before? Was that from like old mini comics or what?
I think he's a mini comic.
Yeah,
think
like
so,
originally
yeah.
from the
One to
mini
say.
comics. They also made a toy of him in the classics line.
Mhm.
Okay. And they mentioned a moon, like Phantos, I think.
Oh yeah, they do mention Phantos as well, don't they? Yeah, lots of Easter eggs in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, like very good.
A
There's
lot
several
of
things.
a lot of lore to it in the first couple of pages, even before the story starts, which I think made it. Because I was trying to figure out which universe this was when I first started reading, and I thought, oh, is this going to be like a 2002? Because they mentioned the Dark Hemisphere and
Yes.
some sort of warlord, and I was like, oh, that's the spell of separation stuff, and then it turned into something totally different. So the unexpected, I think, is what we had in this. Like, it was stuff that we had never seen before and universes that we had never seen before, which I was just expecting pre-existing stuff, which wasn't the case. So it was exciting. And as you say, like when you turn the page and suddenly it's Castle Grayskull, man. It's like, it's a genuine surprise rather than just it being your standard He-Man or like Filmation He-Man or something like that.
Well, I like to, you brought up, I totally forgot about this, which is odd given I'm a huge Hordak fan. But, like you said, that's a complete 2002 Mike Young reference, a warlord. I mean, I remember, I can picture the scene, vividly, where the sorceress is like warlord, Hordak, spell of separation, dark and light hemispheres, beautifully animated. And Hordak, I think, was kind of in the shadows, so you didn't really see what he looked like yet. And I thought Hordak was going to be in this story. So it was actually, even though I prefer, like, Hordak's my favorite villain, right? But I still prefer the way they did it with the Castle Grayskull man shot, because I feel like Hordak, horror, his villains lend very much to like a horror backdrop. So the fact that Tim Seeley also did not go in that direction was a nice curveball, because I think it would have been easier to do a Hordak situation there.
I was also going to mention, just going back to like the introductory stuff with Sorceress and Zodac. This is our first look at Revelation Zodac, due to be played by William Shatner, I think, in the new series.
In Revolution.
Yes. Did anyone else read all these lines in William Shatner's voice in their head like I did?
No, I didn't. I'll have to reread it with that in mind.
Sure.
Sorceress, I've traveled 1,000 light years on a chair. Like, I kept doing that in my head as I was reading the lines.
That's great.
See what it was like.
Fantastic reference though with his chair. I mean, I also appreciated that. Like, and like, Tim Seeley has been writing for He-Man for quite some time. So, that's I don't expect any less, I guess. I'm just pleasantly surprised with the directions he's been taking, because it's just not a stereotypical one to take. Which is why I feel in the second story, if we may now jump to that at the very least, what I was talking about earlier was they should have used the Mattel Intellivision console at the end. He-Man and Skeletor bond over a Nintendo looking system,
which actually had a
right?
Masters of the Universe cartridge for it as well back in the day.
Oh wow.
Yep.
Exactly. So that would have been a nicer tie-in, I think. I don't know. I might have even liked it better if it just straight up said like Nintendo and looked like a Nintendo, since so many of us growing up in the 80s with He-Man and She-Ra probably also owned Nintendos and were playing that. So maybe they just didn't want to give it free advertising or anything, but they could have made it look like a Nintendo. I don't know. I didn't like the ending. That's what really threw me off that
The ending is
Skeletor, they
terrible.
just, yeah. It's just like,
terrible.
oh, you have a Nintendo. Let's go play Duck Hunt or something. Like, I just,
I need Doritos.
yeah.
Oh, those are for
Yeah,
Cringer.
yeah. When I was reading it to Josh, I was like, well, they're like these like bags of maybe like, I don't know, I'm just gonna call them Doritos. They don't really look like Doritos, but like in the 80s, I would have been eating bag of Doritos.
Yes. All the different ways Cringer kept picturing Adam like he wanted to eat
That
him.
was the best for me.
Wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Because it
Because
always
it
had
was-
his hair. It always had.
Yes. Yeah, it was like, but then at the end, like there was what, bacon, a hamburger, and it had little Prince Adam hair or He-Man
Yes.
hair.
Yeah.
And the only reason that Cringer was there was to eat Adam. Like, that's the
Yeah.
only reason he was tagging along or
Well,
whatever.
okay, hang on. Though.
But at the very end, he turns it because he gave him the Doritos or whatever. So he is thinking a little heart, like, he's
Hair.
satisfied. I thought that was so cute.
With hair.
Yeah.
Too funny.
Yeah, this reminds me a comment I wanted to make. When John was describing the setup for this, right? And it's like, oh no, Adam in all of these universes is the right choice or whatever to be human, and yet in this one they kind of wreck that concept a little bit because he's not Adam in any way,
No.
shape, or form. His name is not Adam. He doesn't really transform at any point. It's just He-Man. Right? It's like there's no reference at all to any of that. Yes, the goddess gives him the various weapons, just like in the old DC comic series from the 80s and things, which she actually does give to Adam. So I thought that was a little bit strange that they just kind of abandoned the entire idea of this comic book in order to tell this silly story. But I really like the first 4/5 of the story are fine. Like I loved all of the little nods to the various versions, right? The early mini comics, the early DC comics. I love all the nods and references to all that. Yeah, it's a little silly, but it like didn't go too far until at the very end when Skeletor starts blowing up all the different vehicles and then they decide to go play Nintendo or whatever. The ending was just so over the top, so jumping the shark and so removed, kind of like John, what you were saying about the artwork, so removed from anything that I enjoy in Masters. Like it destroyed that second story for me.
I'm glad, Leanne, that you told us that it was kind of based on the Mad Magazine stuff. That
Mhm.
makes it make a lot more sense in my head. Just
Yeah,
the
that-
ridiculousness of it.
Actually, I mean, that line that you told us about, Katie, that was like, I mean, I don't like that, but I can understand, at least that's what they're going for,
Yeah.
and with the style and all that. So I tried to keep that in the back of my head as I was
That's
reading,
helpful.
so yeah.
Well, I was curious what you thought, Leanne, of it starts out in Avion, and then
Yes.
Stratos is like, and I'm here with my feathers.
Feathers, yeah. You know what? I was just glad he was in it, to be honest.
Fair.
So I'll take it, but yeah, it did make me laugh when he said that.
Yeah, that's good.
But-
I thought Skeletor blowing up all the vehicles was hysterical.
It is,
Yeah.
well, yeah. I enjoyed that.
Oh, I will say Stratos did get more time in this little story than he did in Revelations. So
Ooh,
at least so that's something.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think the greatest crime of this one is maybe that it just goes on for too long. I think if it had been like a 2-page like little story at the end, it would have been just a bit like, oh, that was kind of fun. I don't know whether it needed to be half the comic. I feel like
that actually may have
maybe-
made it better, right? Like just make it
Mm.
a short little 1-page thing or something.
Yeah.
Oh, and why did Tila have a unicorn charger? What is that?
Did you have a unicorn in one of the old mini comics? I want to say.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
is
I
charger
think
the name of the unicorn, or those two
I
words
think the-
together don't make sense to me?
the problem with it in general, I think, is like it is a more obscure Tila reference. Whereas I think for most of us, when we see a unicorn, we think Swiftwind, She-Ra, not really Tila. So, and I
Yeah, I
like
think
it, you know,
Tila
I like to
had
keep
one
Tila and
though.
She-Ra separate.
Yeah,
Right.
Tila had one. I think Mark is right. It was an early mini comic, I think, and maybe one of the storybooks from back in the day. I think she had one in one of those as well.
I think you might be
But
right. It
so
rang a bell. It was just like unicorn charge. Like, does she plug it in? I don't understand what charger means, but whatever. It's
Maybe it means charger, like it charges at things.
maybe.
Or she has to charge it and the little unicorn horn glows. I don't know.
I do love though when before He-Man turns into He-Man, the guy's like, "What are we, barbarians?" It's such a nod to like barbarian He-Man from the old mini comics. That made me laugh.
I thought the
think
gags in
the
this were good. They were well judged gags,
Mhm.
but it's hard to sustain the entire story on on those gags, perhaps.
When
the
go ahead, Josh.
I was just gonna say the funniest line in that one, at least to me, was the when who is it that I forget who it is that asks him, but anyway, somebody asks him what his name is, and he's like, "Oh yeah, they just point and grunt and say He-Man," and that was
Yes.
actually genuinely funny. Whereas most of the rest of the humor in it was slapstick or stupid to me. So I didn't, most of the humor did not appeal to me.
What I found confusing, and maybe someone can explain this, and I just pulled up so I could look at it. When this story starts off, and Skeletor gets both halves of the sword, and he's to open Grayskull. In one of the panels, it's like the second panel, Beast
I'm
Man
gonna pull it up.
is carrying He-Man off like he was already in the battle. And then the goddess appears and she explains that she needs to find a worthy champion.
Oh,
So
you're
it was a different
right.
Oh,
barbarian, I guess. Like
Yeah,
she
so
tried giving
because
the power to somebody else and it didn't work out, so then she went to go find.
yeah, like, is that what it is? Like, that's not actually our,
yeah, it
Adam
must
He-Man?
be.
Like, it's some other person she gave stuff to, and it was like, oh, this guy's not working out because Skeletor got
Yeah,
the sword. I don't think that
Interesting.
was clearly explained, and that I got real confused because it's not a flashback when
Mm-mm.
she gives barbarian guy the stuff, because she clearly says, I need to find a worthy champion. So yeah, I get maybe he should have looked different. Maybe they could have made him look a bit more like Conan. Like if he looked a bit more like Conan the Barbarian, that would have been a
That would
good
have been
little
cool.
visual gag.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good catch. I did not even notice that.
I'm sure someone can explain the reasoning, but if I'm casual comic reader, cannot understand what they're talking about, then I don't think that it was clearly
Yeah.
clearly defined in the artwork there or the story. But that would be my minor complaint, other than the big complaint, which is the ending.
Is
I
the
do feel
shaggy
like they could have
beast from-
accomplished the same goal with a, lighthearted, humorous, contrast to the first story without taking it as far as they did.
Yeah. I'm still laughing at all the food with hair on it.
I know. I was just looking at that again too. Oh my gosh.
That's my favorite part.
So good.
Is Shaggy Beast from anything, or is that just a silly made up thing?
Yeah, I was looking at that too. I wasn't sure if it was a take on something maybe from Filmation that I'm just not remembering, because it doesn't look exactly like anything I remember.
Yeah.
But at this point, we've had so many. We got all these comic books, mini comic books, Filmation, Mike Young, New Adventures, so many things to draw from. I don't blame any of us if we don't specifically remember some, one-off beast character.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was just like, but someone else will tell you you're not a true fan. Not you. Heaven forbid you must remember something.
Oh, and okay, so heroic battle stilts. That was new, correct?
No, that's from the original toy line.
Are you serious?
Long-
I thought
yeah,
they
that
just
was-
made that up
yeah.
because it's so ridiculous.
No, that's from a late, like almost when the line was dead, I think. The Stilt Stalkers. Yeah. I
Oh,
did not
yeah.
have them as a child. I remember seeing them. I literally legit remember seeing them in the toy store and thinking, why would I buy this with my money that my mommy just gave me to purchase something with?
Most impractical vehicle ever designed. Man at Arms just
Yeah.
phoning it in at that point.
Yeah. So he just I think that's why it worked well on the gag, because that was like the last thing she had left to give him. That it was like a toy that basically none of us wanted even in the 80s.
Doesn't he just fall over as soon as he gets on them? He's like, whoa, and he just like falls flat
Yeah.
on his face.
Yeah, she says, "Oh, the stilt thing didn't work,
Yeah.
but it was stilts with guns on them." Yeah.
And then at the end of that one, it looks like she's making Tila the new hero.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
yeah.
confused me
Goddess.
too. Because I do not subscribe to anything where Tila gets the power.
Rude. You're
And
sexist, John. I'm kidding.
no, Adora is the one who gets the power, and I don't like us bestowing a sword upon Tila. That was also something that just personally rubbed me the wrong way. I think there's a lot of cool things you could do as Tila, and to be honest with you, this has nothing to do with the comic book, but I
She
just
often
thought
had
of
a
it.
sword in Filmation.
Yeah, but
Not a
like
specific sword, just a sword.
yeah, like
a used sword.
but they make a big deal, like she's giving her this sword and it's all like magical stuff around it in this. What I would like is, the original Tila action figure had the snake armor and the staff. When she becomes the sorceress, like in Revelation, spoiler alert if you haven't seen that yet, but it's been on Netflix forever. She becomes the new sorceress, which I'm totally cool with, because she's supposed to become the new sorceress. I had no problem with that aspect of the story, but I thought it would have been cooler if she would have like not looked like her mother sorceress. They could have used like snake armor. Maybe she has that when she's in the human form or something. When she leaves Castle Grayskull and doesn't have magic, when she enters back into the castle, they could have had her turn green and everything. I don't know if they think it's too much like snakes, like a snake reference, like King Hiss and stuff, but I thought that would have been cool. They could have done something like that, like giving her that armor or something would have been nice in the panel, not just a sword. Because it's just, for me, the unicorn was in this, the sword, too identifiable with She-Ra, who is the co-lead of Masters of the Universe, not Tila. Not change my mind.
You would think so, just after Sorceress showing Zodac that world, that Zodac would be like, oh, okay, your Adam is fine.
Yeah, your Adam is fine.
Right.
And like,
And
I've
3 different heroes in the span of a day.
Yeah, that's true. She could have been like, look, it could be worse. You've got the horror guy, you've got this dude who doesn't know what he's doing, hasn't even got any powers. And he just goes, okay, fine, I'll go.
So maybe they'll
Well,
be even
overall,
more
though, I
ridiculous
think-
later on. Who knows?
overall, I'd say we had a very positive reaction to this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I have a question for you guys. These two stories, like I said at the beginning, were not part of any recognizable incarnations. They just kind of drew from random ones and built new universes. Do you think all of the stories we're going to get in this Masterverse series will do that? Or do you think we will get at least a story or two set in an incarnation that is obviously recognizable as, Filmation or Mike Young or New Adventures or whatever it is?
I'm gonna can I drop some spoilers?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
Big spoilers.
I've seen some of they just revealed like the cover for issue 4 the other day, And I think we've had definitely confirmed that the CG universe from Netflix is getting a story. And I think I saw Tim Seeley say in a tweet the other day that he was doing a 2002 like Mike Young cartoon follow-up story as well.
That would be awesome.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I know at
Josh will
least
like
you're
that.
getting those two. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So that's cool.
I
Yeah.
think he said this might have been in the interview you sent, Katie, with Tim Seeley. I think he said the only thing he wasn't able to use was the Netflix She-Ra. I
Oh.
think
Which
they
makes
let him
sense.
use everything else.
Once
So-
again,
Yeah, what the heck?
I know.
That's got such a massive audience as well, like a
Yeah.
really sort of devoted fan base. You'd think they'd want to capitalize on that.
Yeah, they could do some really cool things with it too.
Mm.
it still trends sometimes on Twitter. I get, people will message me that the Netflix She-Ra cartoon or Catra and Catra from that incarnation, not like Filmation Catra, are trending on Twitter. So like it does have a very a dedicated fan base that unfortunately I feel is removed from regular Masters of the Universe bulk
Mhm.
fan base, which is sad because we know why. Like there are multiple issues with why A will have problem with B, who will have problem with C. But we all liked, the She-Ra cartoon a lot. So it would have been nice if they could have kind of, slid that in there. But that's sad. But at least he had access to everything else. Obviously, the Filmation. But wait, he didn't say Netflix She-Ra, but he didn't say he didn't have Filmation She-Ra. So maybe she appeared in the other He-Man comic book releases. So maybe we will get a She-Ra centered story in it. Should be nice.
They also, I mean, as far as the Masterverse toy line, right? She-Ra has been incorporated into that, so
Yep.
that probably gives them an in as well.
I wonder
I just
if
want
they're
my new
planning-
adventures content. Don't ask for much. I ask for a new adventures story every decade.
Well, New Adventures He-Man Masterverse edition has started showing up in US Targets. I've had it pre-ordered at Target for, I don't know, a year or something, and mine has not shipped, but it's showing up in physical stores as of last week. So I keep checking my local Target to see if he pops up there, and I'll just cancel my pre-order because I think that figure looks fantastic. So I will get it and open it. Unlike many of my other Masterverse stuff that's just sitting in a box.
You're gonna do one massive unboxing video.
Yeah, well, that's kind of a good segue. So as we said, we definitely podcast every year. It's just how many times, that is the mystery. So we haven't podcasted in quite some time. So is everyone, what are you buying? What are you getting at the store? What are you not buying anymore? Personally, myself, I'm basically buying everything Masters Universe Origins. I usually pre-order it online. If I find it in the store, I grab it quickly. Unfortunately, my Targets, my Walmarts, they all have kind of the same stock they've had for months and months. Lots of Stridors, Rotons, Sorceress, Leech, Snout, Spout, those type of toys for Origins. I buy mostly every Masterverse thing as well. So I'm purchasing all of those. Again, have to get most of them online because the stock in the stores is a lot of the same stuff I see. Too bad. That Revelation Skeletor thing. Andrea from Revelation. And then recently my Targets just got Roboto and Frosta. So that was a shock when I was like, whoa, there's a ton of Frostas in Target. And then like I'll see a random Dolph Lundgren He-Man, that type of thing as well. So Skeletor seemed to be selling. I haven't seen him physically in Target yet.
I keep wanting to buy Origin stuff, but they're not in the UK anymore, like at all. I think if you pre-order them from like specialist websites, you can get them, but even then it's like considerably higher price and limited quantity. So after like the ones that you've just described, like I stopped around the time of like the leech snout spout wave because I just couldn't find them anywhere, and they go for like
Okay.
£100 on eBay now, like insane prices.
Wow.
And I've not been able to find them, which is a shame because I really liked the Origins line. So if I can find them, I do buy them, but it's a struggle now. And I did buy, I don't collect a huge amount of the Masterverse stuff, but I did buy the movie Skeletor the other day because I actually found him. And I was like, quick, I've got to get it before he goes. And he was well worth the money. I had him next to me earlier and I've foolishly moved him away or I would have held him up. But he was a great figure, like a really amazing likeness. He's got like some purple highlights on his armor rather than how he looked in the movie, and I don't know if that's just a rights issue, like they had to differentiate it from the movie sufficiently that they didn't cross any copyright stuff. I have no idea why they chose that color, but it still looks good. He looks great, yeah. And the Dolph Lundgren He-Man head does not look great, so I haven't bought that one. Very, very dodgy head sculpt, which ruins an otherwise great figure. Grotesque is how I described it earlier. And I'll do it again. Grotesque.
Yeah, we were talking earlier, and I'm buying a different head for that one. Mine is sitting in my pile of loot, not sponsored. Big Bad Toy Store always comes through usually with my pre-orders, but I'm one of those lazy fans that I wait until the last minute to ship all of my stuff that has come in. So, you know, it sits there for like, I don't know, 90 some days, and then I ship it. But I do finally have those movie figures, and I really need to open them and order a different head for Dolph Lundgren. But I'm sorry, Josh, I cut you off. You started
Yeah,
talking.
that's fine. I've been collecting all the Origins and Masterverse stuff as well. I have had a lot going on recently, so I have not opened everything yet, but I'm working my way through that. I will say one thing that was a nice surprise. So I also order most of my stuff online, which has made oftentimes getting like the in-store exclusive type stuff, the Target, Walmart exclusives, a little bit difficult. I had missed out on like 2 years ago on the Flocked Panther. And interesting thing. So mostly I have various family members who are willing to do it. You know, keep an eye out whenever they're in Walmart or Target for whatever it is, the things that I need to get that way or whatever, if I haven't been able to get them online for a reasonable price or whatever. And but most of them are in California. My sister, my mom, my brother-in-law, they are out there where they live. The master stuff at Target and Walmart basically sells out the second it's on the shelves. So it's kind of the opposite problem that Shadow's having. They'll go in there, and if they catch it, there's stuff on the shelves, and if not, it's just empty shelves. And for whatever reason, it's going really quickly. So they hadn't had a lot of luck. They had a little bit of luck, but right before Christmas, they were in my mom and sister were together, and they went into Walmart, and the master section was mostly empty, except for apparently somebody must have found in the back room or whatever the Flocked Panther. The box was a mess. It was covered in dust. It was not in good shape at all, but somebody had dragged it out of the back and put it out there. And so I got Flocked Panther for Christmas.
Yeah.
So,
Nice.
years later. And they had remembered that was one of the ones I never was able to get. And now I have that one. So that was great. And still working my way through building the various Mega Block sets, which are hands down my favorite Master Universe toy line at this moment in time. I'm almost halfway done building Snake Mountain. I still have Hordak versus She-Ra with the Monstroid yet to build, and the Havoc Staff. as well. And I think I might have one other one over there that I'm forgetting right now. But, oh, the jet sled. Um, love those. I really hope those continue, but we haven't gotten any announcements for a while, so I don't know if we're getting any more of those. I really hope we are, because that has just been the most fun I've had collecting Masters toys in probably since Mike Young. So I love the Mega Blocks.
I think there's like a new some new figure packs out, like possibly just this month, which I don't know if you've.
I pre-ordered one on Amazon that says it's shipping in April. That's the one with Orko in
Oh,
it.
okay.
Is that the one you're
That's
thinking
the
of?
one, yeah.
Yeah. My Amazon pre-order says ships in April, so it's coming soon. So I know that's coming, but beyond that, we haven't had any other announcements. I really hope we are getting some more sets.
Me too, because I took time off work to do my Snake Mountain. I was so dedicated to
Nice.
to getting it finished. I was like, well, I happened to be off work anyway, but I used all of my days off, like on one of the weeks, to like
That's amazing.
full time construct a Snake Mountain, and it was like very satisfying when it's done.
Yeah, I'm
It needs some
almost
time.
done with the first half. I've got the archway at the top of the first half, and the snake that wraps around it is what I've got left, and then I'll be starting the second half after that. And it's just been so much fun, so much fun.
Mhm. It's huge, absolutely
It is
a
huge.
huge undertaking. It
Every
really
time
is.
I think like, oh, this is the top. Nope, there's another level we have to build.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I haven't been collecting anything for myself, but my youngest nephew freaking loves He-Man. I just somehow hit the jackpot with this kid as far as He-Man goes. As all I got him, I think to begin with, was when Origins first came out. I got He-Man and Skeletor. We have him, He-Man gave Skeletor to his brother, and he like started devouring that little mini comic that came with it. He would just read it over and over and over and would just stare at the artwork. I would be sitting like about to eat a meal, and he just is I had to like tell him to put it away because he just did not want to stop looking at it. So I just started getting him little things here and there, and he just loves it. And it doesn't even matter what iteration of He-Man it is, though he seems to really be drawn to the CGI He-Man the most. But he'll enjoy anything I get him. So I've been getting him all of the books that have been coming out for the CGI He-Man series. He hasn't read the two longest ones yet. They were kind of little novellas. He's only 8, so that would take him a while to get through, but he pounds through all the other books I get him. I even gave him little golden books of He-Man, Skeletor, and She-Ra. He thought those were great. Just the illustrations and everything are fantastic. So I haven't really gotten many toys, but he and his brother both are just big book readers, so that appeals to him more anyway. So I've been, really enjoying. Like last time we were visiting with them, I got to like read him He-Man stories every night before bed, and I was just like, oh my god, my heart's exploding. And then for his birthday, he wanted a He-Man costume, so of course I got him a He-Man costume, and he, oh my god, he was so cute wearing that thing around the house. I have pictures I can share with y'all later. He is He-Man, his brother is Harry Potter, battling it out. It was fantastic.
Nice.
So I'm kind of living vicariously through him right now. I just got the new CGI art book that's so massive. I haven't even taken the plastic wrap off of it yet. So I'm like, I don't have time to look at that at the moment. But I look forward to looking through that with him. And there was another CGI, I think it was just like an activity book that was supposed to come out recently. And then like the release date came and went, and my Amazon pre-order just got canceled. So I don't know if they just didn't end up making it in the end. I don't know. I hope that series isn't done as far as books go, because my nephew's gonna be really sad if it is. But yeah, I do want to get him some Mega Blocks one of these days. I think he would enjoy that.
You just reminded me too that I was just going to also toss out there that I got 4 of the CGI show figures. I do not enjoy the CGI show, as this podcast has documented, particularly season 2. However, I'll say with the figures, really don't like most of the figures. I really don't like the design of He-Man and Skeletor. Trapjaw is okay, I guess, but kind of ridiculous. The only one that I kind of like was the Sorceress / Tila. That's a reasonable design to me, and I do kind of like that figure. I'm not really sure what to do with it because I don't like any of the other ones, so none of them are going on display right now. But the CGI figures though did seem like absurdly cheap to me. I hate the big plug on the power sword that you stick in the back of in He-Man's back for him to hold the sword. It's very strangely designed figures, and I don't care. I don't care for the designs. I don't care for the way the figures are put together. And if kids are enjoying them, that's great. But I was hoping that I would at least enjoy the designs more than I did, and I was again disappointed by
Aw.
that whole era. And to each their own. Not knocking anybody that enjoys the show or the toys, but boy, they're not for me.
As for me, I'm really picky about which figures I buy nowadays. I did get the Stratos Masterverse figure. I think he's okay, but I think he's like really bulky for some reason. I think that's my main issue with him. But I took off like some of he has a bunch of accessories and I took a lot of those off. So I mean, he's a decent figure. Rod told me to just think of him as like an alternate universe Stratos, so that's what I'm going to do. So,
There you go.
but he's going to go on my Stratos shelf, obviously.
Nice.
But I do really want to get the CGI He-Man and Skeletor figures, the Masterverse ones, because I think they look really nice. I just haven't had a chance yet. But I mean, I have friends that send me pictures. Shout out to Paul Stricker. He always
Amen.
sends me pictures. Yeah.
Same.
I live vicariously through him. He always shows me pictures of new stuff, he gets in, and the figures for the most part look really nice, in hand. So, I mean, other than He-Man stuff,
better, the Masterverse versions of the CGI He-Man, I did order them. Do you think I might get more out of those?
I mean, it's possible. They look really nice. I mean, in terms of the details, and I don't think they look quite as cheap as like
Okay, yeah.
the regular ones, which is why I want them, because they seem like very well designed figures.
Okay, well, we'll see.
Yeah.
I'll be curious when I open them if they're already here. I don't know. I've got a bunch of stuff I need to get through. So.
Yeah. So other than that, I just collect like Power Ranger figures mainly. And I'm picky about those too. So that's about it for me.
Hey, same. I've cut back on Lightning. I'm only buying, teams and characters I really like, because
Yep. Same.
I don't think some of the teams will ever be completed anyway. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. So I'm kind of scaling back on those. More all of Master stuff takes up the pocketbook,
Yeah,
But,
I will be getting, whenever they release Cosmic Fury figures, I will have to get those.
Oh, obviously.
But I mean, that's bias. So
we expect no less. You must.
Yes.
I get the villains of the Lightning collection. That's my only Power Rangers purchase.
Oh, nice.
Oh, good. It is.
I don't
nice
care about
because,
the Rangers.
we didn't get them.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I like the Rangers because they have the actor heads. And their heads are pretty good. Like, unlike the Mattel Dolph Lundgren head, I do feel that a lot of times, not all of them, but maybe like 7 out of 10, usually the Hasbro does pretty well with the Power Ranger actor likeness. I've been pretty happy with those on display. But it's nice that they do a lot of the villains.
Yeah.
Yes, my
And
my
they've,
astronomer figures look like Melody Perkins, so
yes.
that's okay by me. That's all I
Yeah,
need from the
I
line.
think I have two astronomers, I think, because they came out with like 2 packs or something. Like, and I was like, well,
Yeah.
of course I gotta get them. I also pre-ordered the Billy remastered figure because it's gonna come with, because it's for the 30th anniversary of Power Rangers, and it's gonna come with a new Billy head with removable glasses. So I need to put that
Oh,
head
okay.
on my Gold Ranger, my Zeo Gold Ranger, because Billy should have been the Gold Ranger, as we know. But yeah, but the likenesses, yeah, have gotten, I think, even better since they first started. So that's always nice.
Well, I think we're done. So we have to thank everyone who still subscribes to the podcast. This is always an audio podcast. It's our first love. We've been broadcasting, for lack of a better term, like we said, since 2005. So you can find us on all of your popular podcast apps if for some reason you aren't subscribed there. But most likely you are, and that's where you're listening to this and not watching it on YouTube. But in case you want to see our lovely faces, if the video actually worked out for us, it will be on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@masterscast, or just search for Masterscast on YouTube. And if you liked our video on YouTube, we would be really appreciative if you would just hit the subscribe button and like the video. Apparently that helps your channel. I don't know. That's what all the other YouTubers say normally at the end of their videos. So I figured I should state that here.
Tell them to smash it, John. Smash the like button.
Smash that like button.
Smash that like button.
That's what
and
they've got to
ring
do.
the bell. I still don't know what the bell does. I feel bad. I don't usually ring the bell on anyone. I subscribe
So
to
the bell
a lot of
notifies
YouTubers.
you if somebody has put up a new video. It notifies you.
Oh, then definitely hit that bell, because who knows when we're going to post another video. So you need to be notified of that. But I love YouTube. I love it as a platform. I feel I watch way more YouTubers on YouTube. I subscribe to more YouTubers on YouTube than I actually watch streaming or broadcast shows these days. So I watch a lot of YouTube. So I think it's a really nice platform for people. So I figured we would try recording the podcast as a video and see how that went. No promises, though, if it actually worked. We'll see. But thanks for downloading, or thanks for watching. I'm John Callis, also known as The Shadow.
I'm Katie Carty Hiley, also known as Rainbow Bright.
I am Martin Penny, also known as Wacky Martin. And I apologize. The sun has set in the last half an hour, and my video quality has worsened considerably because this is the only light source that I have in front of me.
It makes you look more mysterious and, yeah. I am Leanne Hanna, also known as Stratos Mecca.
I'm Josh DeLioncourt, also known as Lioncourt.
Good journey.
Well, I feel that was really hard to sync over video.
I'll just make it
One of the
funny.
better ones.
It's all good.
It's all good. At least we said it.